Good morning, all, and welcome back to the Turn It Round the Corner podcast. I hope you've had a great week. The sun is hopefully shining, and yeah, hope all's well. So, before we talk about episode 20, I want to touch back a little bit on episode 19. Obviously, episode 19 was a two-parter. Darren blew it in the first part, talking about his career at West Ham, loan periods with Exeter and Southend, and then how he dropped into non-league football and saw out his playing days at Harlow Town. Episode 2 was a bit more serious. Darren spoke about his problems off the pitch, how obviously things probably started to surface when he was playing football, but at the back end of his non-league career, he had an issue with drink, and that led to an addiction to drink and to alcohol, and that ended up in the Sporting Chance. And again, it was talking about his problems off the pitch, but also how he's rebuilt his life, how he's moved to a new area, how he's done some voluntary work in his local community, how he's gone back to the game that he loves, and he's now a football coach with a football school and does one-to-ones and group coaches and team coaches and birthday parties, and how he's really put his life together, and he's now multiple years sober. And it was a serious episode. We didn't want to make the whole episode the two-parter about that, but there was something there that we think could help other sports people that are maybe having issues and maybe having problems. And off the back of part 2 going out, Darren receives some messages and a call from a young professional footballer that was having some issues, was struggling, and off the back of multiple messages with Darren, I think he's now getting some counselling, he's getting help, and that that is a sort of a massive well done to Darren. It's a massive well done for him for not sensationalising it, but getting the message out there that he's lived that life as a footballer, and he did have some issues, and he probably say he reached rock bottom with those issues, and as I say, went into rehab and has fought back and rebuilt his life. And not only has he lived a football life, he's lived another path as well that you don't want other sportsmen or or people that are not playing sport to experience that. And I think he's doing great work, highlighting it, helping people. As I say, off the back of that, if we've saved one person or helped one person off the back of Darren speaking about it and getting it out there and being honest and open about his difficulties, then I think that's a massive kudos to him. And I'm very glad as a podcast that we raised that in a way where people can feel like it's something that they're feeling as well, and that they're struggling with, and they might be going down that same path, and they do need some help. So it might be the final realization that enough's enough, and they need some help. And hopefully any more people that listen or have been passed the pod or passed Darren's number or contact details will again get some help, and hopefully go down a different path. So it was a serious episode. I think we shed it in the best light that we could, and as I say, the fact that a day after it went out last Saturday, that a young footballer had been in touch with Darren really sort of says to me it was a good thing that we done and got it out there. So as I've said plenty of times over the last couple of weeks, massive thank you to Darren. I appreciate him giving up his time and as I say, talking about openly about and honestly about the difficulties he had, and I really hope that he continues to just live the life that he's living now and continue to grow and make great strides in the football world, because as I say, I think he's lived both sides to be able to help young footballers do great things on and off the pitch. So that kind of puts episode 19 to bed. And episode 20. So episode 20 is with a gentleman I've got to know over the last 3 or 4 years. doing some work for Phoenix FM and doing the Orient Hour and following Leighton Orient. But Steve Tongue is I call him a football encyclopedia, and you'll tell from this podcast that normally when I speak to him, he teaches me something new, and there's 3 or 4 things in this podcast that he's taught me about the game that I didn't know. So yeah, Steve Tongue he was a sports journalist. He was a broadcaster for 45 years. He basically started as the voice of London football from LBC day one, and he was a BBC radio football producer. He's worked for 3 national newspapers. He covered 9 World Cups, 2 Olympic Games. He's wrote a series of books called Turf Wars, looking at different parts of the UK and the clubs in that area. But his first book was actually on David Beckham and 50 defining fixtures. So yeah, great man, great knowledge. Someone that you've probably heard on the radio or read an article from. Very privileged to have someone like that on the podcast. True gentleman. And we also talk about walking football. So Steve, I think from the start, has been involved with walking football. He's fixture secretary, captain of the walking football. I think it's the over 70s. I don't want to sell him short there, but I think it's the over 70s at Leighton Orient. And we touched on that as well, about a growing sort of version of football that's really taking not just the UK but the world by storm. Talk about some new rule changes that I struggle to get my head around a little bit, but no, I hope you enjoy the podcast. As always, I think it's this podcast put together for different people at different levels and inputs to the game, and I think with this one again, you definitely learn some new stuff about the game. And as I say, thanks Steve greatly. He was off this week, down to Devon watching Orient at Exeter. He watches Orient home and away, and just a lovely chap. And I hope you enjoy. Hope you have a great week, great weekend, and if in doubt, as always, turn it around the corner.